The James Show Podcast.
James Parker, top story of the day is the continuing storyline of, are we going to get a resolution to the Russia-Ukraine war? And our big story on Friday was the meeting between Trump and Putin. Today, the meeting was with Trump and Zelensky. So first, let's cover the ground of Trump and Putin first. Over the weekend, Trump was asked by Sean Hannity, how would he grade the meeting?
If you had to grade it on a scale of 1 to 10?
So I think the meeting was a 10 in the sense that we got along great, and it's good when, two big powers get along, especially when they're nuclear powers. We're number one, they're number two in the world, and it's a big deal. That's a big deal. You never want to even mention that word, the word nuclear. But we have a tremendous nuclear. I rebuilt it when I was president, first term, and I hated to rebuild it. It was the one thing I hated to rebuild, but we had to. And we have the greatest nuclear force. We have the greatest military in the world, actually. And they have a big nuclear presence also.
All right, so of course it's the best meeting. It went totally well. It's the best meeting. I know it, you know it, everybody knows it. Believe me, kind of knew he would say that. It was a different tone on the Sunday shows over the weekend. They stuck Marco Rubio out there, and he had to go to Meet the Press and Face the Nation, and I forgot the other one he did because I only got audio from these two. But I saw him in another interview this weekend too. But the questions that are thrown at this guy, it's just so eye-rolling, exhausting. Margaret Brennan was asking him about, man, wasn't this such a failure? Tell me about how much of a failure this was. It's like, dude, can you just attempt to ask an even keel balanced question that's not just 100% from the DNC playbook? So check this out.
Just a final point here. So at this point, even though he demanded sanctions, no ceasefire, and no deadlines.
Well, but ultimately, first of all, about deadlines, the deadline is as soon as possible. We want this war to end as soon as possible. I mean, that's why we're working on it. In terms of sanctions, look, at the end of the day, if we can't reach a peace agreement here and this war continues and so forth, then I anticipate you'll see the president take further action. He's already made that clear.
Hey, come on now. It's been 24, 48 hours since the meeting. We don't have this thing wrapped up yet. Well, God, what a failure. Well, now, look, even if there is no sanctions, which there's not thus far, 3 days later, even though there's no ceasefire, even though there's no deadline, that's exactly what we had last Thursday. So it's not a failure. It's just a continuation of the status quo. Now, if that's a failure, then you need to go ahead and admit that he was handed a failure, but that wouldn't be his fault. Look, I know you're thinking what I'm thinking. Even when it's coming out of my mouth, I'm thinking, why do you care, Parker? They're just going to criticize everything the guy does, whether it's good or bad. If there was a cold meeting on the tarmac, they would have said, see, things aren't going well. However, since he was nice to him on the tarmac, now all of a sudden that's seen as some sort of failure. How dare you elevate him? How dare you make him look awesome or put him on a red carpet or, the dude cannot win.
Critics of President Trump will say the pomp and circumstance, the red carpet, the warm handshake, that President Trump simply lost that Putin gained there just by being on the world stage and walking down a red carpet with the president. Your reaction to that?
Well, critics of President Trump are always going to find something to criticize. You don't even pay attention to it anymore. But I will tell you this, Putin is already on the world stage. He's already on the world stage. The guy's conducting a full-scale war in Ukraine. He's already on the world stage. He has the world's largest tactical nuclear arsenal in the world and the second largest strategic nuclear arsenal in the world. He's already on the world stage. When I hear people say that, it elevates him. Well, all we do is talk about Putin all the time. All the media's done is talk about Putin all the time for the last 4 or 5 years.
You know what? That's actually a good response. I'm not the world's biggest Marco Rubio fan, but how dare you elevate him on the world stage? Elevate him on the world stage. Y'all have spent the last 8 years giving him credit for the 2016 election when he probably had absolutely nothing to do with the outcome of that election. You guys have been blaming him for everything. Oh, wow, they must have tricked everyone and put misinformation in a laptop and somehow got it framed to Hunter Biden. Boy, you guys are elevating him constantly. But, what do you want him to do? He was warm to him on the tarmac. That's a criticism. What do you want him to do? Flip him off? Putin comes off the plane. Pull up the carpet. No carpet. Give me that water balloon. I'm going to hit him with the water balloon. Oh, crap, I missed. Give me another one. Is that what you're supposed to do? Just shoot him with a super soaker? Oh, God forbid, we shake his hand and he acts warmly. I told you on Friday, and I told you we talked about this on Thursday as well. Leading up to this, he's going to say nice things. That is the playbook for businessmen. And so then Putin's the most evil thing in the world. Zelensky is, of course, is a sympathetic figure. And now Rubio is made to answer for Donald Trump bullying Zelensky. You know what bullying is defined by? It's doing a lot of heavy lifting in this conversation. Bullying means demanding a ceasefire. Oh, okay. World peace is now a bad thing. Peace and ending a war. You'll somehow manage to reframe that as something negative. Oh, what a bully. How dare he not let tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians and Russians continue to die. What a bully.
You know, there's concern from the Europeans that President Zelensky is going to be bullied into signing something away. That's why you have these European leaders coming as backup tomorrow. Can you?
No, it isn't. That's not why they're coming as back. That's not true. No, but that's not that's not true. They're not coming here tomorrow to keep Zelensky from being bullied. They're not coming.
That February Oval Office meeting in front of television cameras where President Zelensky. Do
you know how many meetings we've had since then?
Oh no, I know, and I was just up in.
Oh yeah, all right, that's enough. Good job, Marco Rubio. How bad is the media? They're making me say nice things about Marco Rubio. So we'll just roll over to my next guest here, Jeff Giles on The James Show. He's a retired lawyer, development consultant, political strategist, and speechwriter. Welcome to The James Show, sir.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me.
Okay, so how do you think it's going so far, Jeff? I mean, we've got a little reaction from Putin and Trump over what happened on Friday. Things seem to be sort of positive with Trump and Zelensky this morning. Your thoughts?
Well, the first thing is, James, let's remember there's a human tragedy going on here. A lot of people getting killed in Ukraine. I do not minimize that. I genuinely believe there are people who want to bring that to an end. However, in the world of real politics, unfortunately, human casualties don't count for much. It's a question of power play. And really, I would say that we are at the point where they are all playing liar's dice. Do you know the game?
You talking about weighted dice?
Well, no. It's they had the game portrayed in one of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. You have dice with kings and queens and aces on it, 5 or 7 or however many. You shake them, you put them on the table, and you look at it, and you lie about what you've got because you want to try and push the other guy to lie even more, and then you can call him out. That's where we are at the moment. Everybody is playing sweetness and light, and we want peace more than anything else. But actually, they all have conditions, and they're waiting for the first person to put his hand up and say, okay, you've pushed me too far. I can't accept that. So either Trump is going to get them all to agree to something they don't want, which actually is what Jimmy Carter did back with Menachem Begin and Sadat. Back in the 70s, he got them to agree to things they never wanted to agree to because he just kept pushing them, or one of them's going to crack. The latest situation is that Zelensky talked at his moment with the press when he was with Trump about really, really wanting security guarantees. Now, if he's talking about security guarantees, that's part of a package. That means that privately he has accepted that he is going to need to give up land, and he's going to have to make Ukraine neutral in order to get those security guarantees. Otherwise, they don't go together. You're not talking security guarantees if you still want a ceasefire, if you still want the Russians out of the land. So he's already, I believe, accepted certain things. Putin is doing the same thing for Moscow, saying how much he wants the opportunity for peace. But does he? Is he going to stop fighting? We don't know. And at the moment, it's very difficult for normal people observing to see exactly what's going to happen. I still think that today Zelensky will accept he's going to have to give up land and he's going to have to become neutral in order to get security guarantees. And I think that what's happening at the moment is that they've been discussing what kind of security guarantees.
We're talking with Jeff Gilson, a political strategist, speechwriter. Jeff, so let's see, what does Putin have to give up?
I know this seems counterintuitive, like he's not giving up anything. Putin went on Friday, wanted one thing out of Trump. He wanted Trump to agree a peace deal with him that Trump would then force on Zelensky on Monday. He did not get that. Now, James, I know that in the land of ideological purity, there are people who say, well, what we want is no invasion, Russia out, and everything goes back to normal. Ideally, that would be the case. But Ukraine and Russia have a long history. You cannot just go back to last Tuesday at 2 o'clock and say, we wanted to go back to there. Because Putin's going to talk about the last few hundred years. Zelensky's going to talk about the last few decades. There's a lot of history between Ukraine and Russia. And any kind of realistic end to the fighting is going to require compromise by both of them. So you're not going to get Putin out of Ukraine, but he's not going to get all that he wants. He didn't get what he wanted on Friday. He's already, in a sense, lost, but people don't see it. He lost because he didn't manage to conquer Ukraine in 14 days. What he is scrabbling to do now is rescue as much as he can so that he doesn't get ousted by his own military.
You know, if he has that mindset, let me think out of the box for a second here and run this by you. Why doesn't he roll over an easier mark like a Belarus?
Well, Belarus doesn't have what Ukraine has.
The farmland.
Ukraine ought to be one of the richest countries in Europe. It has fabulous farming land, a fantastic industry, huge mineral deposits. When the Soviet Union existed and Ukraine was part of it on its western flank, Ukraine provided all the minerals, all the oil, all the gas, all the industry. And it was the breadbasket for the Soviet Union. That is why it is so important to Russia. It's also why it's so important to Europe. It also happens to sit on the western extremity of the steppes, which is a vast plain, and it is the entry gate to Europe and the entry gate to Russia if you're thinking of invading. It was through Ukraine that both Napoleon and Hitler advanced on Moscow. So Ukraine is a huge prize. Belarus, not so much.
It does seem a little bit easier, though. All right. Well, good chat. Thanks for catching us up on some of that. Appreciate your insights. This is Jeff Gilson. How do we find your work online, sir?
You can either go to maggieshammer.com or you can go to Jeff Gilson Facebook. If you tell everyone that I spell my name Geoff and you Google Jeff Gilson, you'll find it.
Good stuff. Thank you very much, Jeff Gilson, on The James Show. Coming up next, we backed up the tape, and you're going to hear Trump and some of the European leaders at a big brown table coming up on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey, sports fans, you about ready for football? I know. It's teasing me. It's almost here. I don't get too excited over preseason, but you can still have fun with preseason on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is so fun, it makes preseason watchable. So what do you want to do in the meantime before the real games start? You download the Prize Picks app. You use promo code WBAP. You get $50 to play with your first $5 lineup. And then you can go through and you can find some little easy ones like, hey, the kicker, is he going to get 2 field goals or 1.5 field goals, more or less? That's all you do. On stats from 2 to 6 players, you can win up to 2,000 times your money. And you can start off by playing with the money we provide for you. Download the Prize Picks app. Use promo code WBAP. You get $50 with your first $5 lineup. It could be Arch Manning and Dak Prescott. So go ahead and try it out. Have a little bit of fun. Thank me later. Prize Picks. Run your game. So Trump was just at the big table in a summit at the White House. You know, let's use summit with the lowercase s in this one. And so Trump is meeting now with a bunch of European leaders for the continuing talks to try and settle this whole Russia-Ukraine thing. Now, I sort of flippantly said before the break, I don't recognize half of these people. Well, my ignorance has ended. I went through and listened to most of it and skipped around. So Trump meeting with these European leaders. I did not recognize the new leader of Italy. Her name is Giorgia Meloni. And for one thing, she looks like she's 36. And I know that just makes me feel old because she might be 36. 36 isn't too old to be a world leader. Here I am way older than that. Kind of underachieving there, aren't you? So then I didn't also recognize the new fella, the Chancellor of Germany. And you're actually going to hear a clip from him in just a second. Keir Starmer, I did recognize the new Prime Minister for UK. Emmanuel Macron was there from France. The Finnish president was there. So don't feel bad if you don't recognize the Finnish president. I had never seen that dude before in my life. However, when you look at and I tried to listen to what everyone's little statement was because I can just skip through it here. Technology's great. Every single person that I listened to their whole little spiel there when Donald Trump gave them a chance to talk at the table. They just went around the table and he got to talk to each one. They all seem to be concerned about the security guarantee. That seemed to be the sticking point for everyone at that table except for Ukraine, right? And so that was interesting. But check it out. This is Merz. He is the new chancellor of Germany. And I think this is probably the best summary of what everyone said. By the way, thank you, everyone, for speaking English. I hate trying to do this through translators, and I'm impressed, man. Because how many languages do you speak?
Great. Thank you very much, Ursula. Mr. Chancellor from Germany, a very great leader.
Mr. President, dear Donald, many thanks for having us today. I think this is extremely helpful that we are meeting and hearing that the two of you are having such a good meeting today here in Washington. The next steps ahead are the more complicated ones now. The path is open. You opened it last Friday. But now the way is open for complicated negotiations. And to be honest, we all would like to see a ceasefire, the latest from the next meeting on. I can't imagine that the next meeting would take place without a ceasefire. So let's work on that and let's try to put pressure on Russia.
Remember that
because
part.
The credibility of these efforts we are undertaking today are depending on at least a ceasefire from the beginning of the serious negotiations from next step on. So
all right, now you got to like the sound of that. That's the part I wanted you to hear. They expect a ceasefire. They think a ceasefire is imminent. In fact, they think when we come back to this table, which they expect peace talks to continue, that there's going to be a ceasefire between now and then. So I know it's not a war between Germany and Ukraine or Germany and Russia. Finland's there. And it's nice that we have their voice since they're sort of neighbors. I mean, they're neighbors with Russia, but they're not between Russia and Ukraine or catching any of the collateral damage. But everyone seemed to be, at least publicly, on board with the idea that peace talks are going to continue, that there's going to be a ceasefire. There needs to be a ceasefire. There's going to be a ceasefire. And now we're just sort of working out the details. Now, I don't know if we get this level of honesty or transparency from world leaders ever. So let's just take this all with a grain of salt. Maybe they're just saying what they should be saying in public. Maybe they're just saying what they want you to hear, not what's actually happening. But at least they're saying we all expect a ceasefire. At least they're saying, even if they are just covering their butts. The general optimism flows from that. The other thing I wanted to dispel is I heard this on a couple other shows, and I don't want to name names. It wasn't anybody on this station. This is what I get for flipping around. But this idea that Hillary Clinton said if Trump brings peace to the Ukraine-Russia war, that she'll nominate him for the Nobel Prize. And if you're thinking, wow, well, that sounds actually like something a decent human being would do. That's fantastic. What good news. Man, that's not what she said at all. I don't know who is trying to tell you or make you think that Hillary Clinton is all of a sudden a nice, magnanimous person who's just going to call balls and strikes and leave politics at the door when it comes to people living and dying. No, she's far too ghoulish for that. If you just back it up about 25 seconds from where everyone else is starting this soundbite that you're going to hear probably over the next 24 to 48 hours, you would get the real context. And what it really is if Trump can do all this and magically come to terms that no one would agree to and ride a unicorn and divide by zero, then sure, I would give him the Nobel Peace Prize, or I would nominate him for the Nobel Prize. So you'll see that's not what she said at all. In fact, she's saying the opposite. She just laid out a list of impossible things and said, if he does all that, then yeah, I'll nominate him for the Nobel Prize myself. She was making fun of him. She wasn't actually being a decent human being for 5 seconds.
I understand from everything I've read, he very much would like to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. And honestly, if he could bring about the end to this terrible war, where Putin is the aggressor, invading a neighbor country, try to change the borders. If he could end it without putting Ukraine in a position where it had to concede its territory to the aggressor, had to, in a way, validate Putin's vision of greater Russia, but instead could really stand up to Putin, something we haven't seen, but maybe this is the opportunity, to make it clear that there must be a ceasefire, there will be no exchange of territory, and that over a period of time, Putin should be actually withdrawing from the territory he seized in order to demonstrate his good faith efforts, let us say, not to threaten European security. If we could pull that off, if President Trump were the architect of that, I'd nominate him for a Nobel Peace Prize, because my goal here is to not allow capitulation to Putin.
We got it. See? That's being misrepresented. It's so hard. You're going to see that before the end of the day, and you're going to be like, Parker was right. Parker was right. They're playing that out of context. But now you're all caught up on the Ukraine situation. Coming up next on the James Show, we finally got the report cards, the grades for all the public schools in Texas, find out the 10 best, 10 worst, and then you and I are going to have a nice little discussion on what is the difference? Why do some schools do so well and some fail? One of my regular guests, a foreign policy wonk, coming on the James Show, David Hamilton from the National Security and Economic Center at UNT. Comes on so much, I have that memorized. Welcome back, David Hamilton. Do we have David?
Yep.
Oh, there you go. Hey. So, look, you're my guy who has inside info on what's going on with Russia, Ukraine, and all this foreign policy stuff. How do you think this is going so far? The meeting with Putin on Friday, Zelensky this morning, the European leaders right as the James Show started. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm a simple man, Jenny.
All
I know is we're talking. And you may recall a year or so ago when you had me on your show, there was a whole lot of reticence to even be engaged in conversation. You can't negotiate with Putin. It's not worth it. But so the idea was that we would have a forever war and it would never end and everyone would die. Right. So,
yep.
So I'm very happy as we've talked about that we are in a conversation that Trump is trying to negotiate a deal. He's done a couple of interesting things that you and I've talked about. One is, recently, he just said, well, Zelensky needs to give up the Crimea, which is the southern part that Russia has occupied since 2014. And if you think about negotiation, that's kind of an interesting approach, which is, there's really no way we're getting that back. They've had it. They control it. It would take an armed invasion to get it back. A lot of the people in the Crimea, they speak Russian. They are ethnically Russian. They don't want to leave Russia. So, but by Trump saying, hey, Zelensky, give that up, he's able to then kind of tell the world, hey, I've talked Zelensky into giving up something that he didn't really give up. It was something he was never going to get anyway. So there's some interesting machinations that are going on there. All I know is they're having a conversation. This has always been how much territory gets given up in order to achieve a peace, and what kind of trade incentives, what kind of economic incentives, what kind of favored nation status can we have for Russia? Can we, and the other part of that, this discussion that he's been having is saying, and never asked to be part of NATO. This is something you and I have talked about, and that Putin even asked 4 or 5 years ago to become part of NATO. That whole calculus, that whole dynamic is in play. And I think at the end of the day, for a deal to be done, we have to normalize relationships with Russia. We have to get them to move out. They're going to keep part of it, perhaps on the Donbass, the eastern part even. And no one's going to be happy, but maybe people will be alive when it's all said and done.
All right. So at the table today, by the way, we're talking with David Hamilton, National Security Economic Center. At the table today, he talked to Zelensky and then brought in a bunch of other people, and they all had this sort of round table discussion that I don't know, looked like the conference room. We had the leaders of Italy, Germany, England, the UN General Secretary General was there. Also the guy from Finland. What's Finland doing there?
So the Finns are right close to Russia on the northeastern side there. of Europe, the northwestern side of Russia, and have worried about being taken over for many years. And they recently joined NATO. So all of these countries are part of NATO, which, as you pointed out, is a organization devoted to the defense against Russia. So every one of them has a stake in this. And if they all pull together, especially using their economic might, not their military might, if these countries will do what America has done by sanctioning the countries that embolden and enable Russia by buying their oil, doing trade with them, et cetera, if we all come together as an economic bloc, and truly use those sanctions, we can be crippling to Russia, which is already hurting. And so we need every single player, Finland and the rest, Estonia, Latvia, all of them, including the Brits, the Germans, the Italians, all of us to come together, apply as much pressure as possible, when that is the stick, the big stick, and then provide a carrot like you and I've talked about.
David Hamilton, the most optimistic part of the roundtable meeting that I heard today was when the Chancellor of Germany, Merz, said that he expects to continue meeting in the months ahead, and he expects the next time he meets there will be a ceasefire. And everyone at the table kind of did a nod yes. It seems to be the general consensus is that a ceasefire is close.
Yeah, all of this is now possible. 6 months, a year ago, people poo-pooed this and said there's no possibility. Why even talk about it? And when a German is in some way, shape, or form slightly optimistic, that's a good sign.
Yeah, Germans and war haven't really gone too well together in the last century or so. David Hamilton, how do we find your work online?
So you might go to unt.edu/ here's the tricky part, -NSESC. That's 5 letters, NSESC, and it stands for National Security and Economic Strategy Center. And if you go there, you'll see things about our website. You'll see Secretary England and others, and people, General Petraeus and others that are on our board of advisors, and you'll see all of our events. And we have this really great event, and it's free to the public, September 13th at the Frontiers of Flight Museum. The code for free is UNT-free for your listeners, UNT all caps, free, all caps, with a dash in the middle. We'd love people to go to unt.edu/NSESC. Look that up. Love for them to come to that. We honor Admiral McCraven, who was the one who led the capture and killing of Osama bin Laden. We had Admiral Mullen, all those kind of good things. Hope people will go to that website, check it out, and we would love to see you there, sir, and I will place you at a seat of honor.
Good. Yeah, I went to your last event. I was very impressed. I love going to that kind of stuff. I'll see you again. What was that, September 13th?
13th. It's a Saturday. Yes, sir.
Is Petraeus going to be there?
He will be in Ukraine. He was hosting, but now he's not. But Mullen, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs, will be standing in his stead, along with G. Brent Ryan, General Tim Ray, Darcy Anderson, Secretary of England. It's a pretty heady group.
You sure you want me to go? I don't know. I'm just
Absolutely.
kidding. Thank you very
clean
much.
up great, sir.
Thank you, sir. All right. Again, David Hamilton. The website, I just checked it out, unt.edu/NSESC. And if you don't remember, just send me you're going to do it anyway. Send me an email or a Facebook message. I'll send you the link. I know you want to go.
The James Show Podcast.